Service Committee gets us all started.
All right, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Bucyrus City Council Joint Regular Committee meeting tonight, starting at 6 p.m. January 18th. Public participation. Anyone who would like to come to the podium, state your name, your address. No public participation? Okay. Next order of business is Service Committee. I'll call the Service Committee to order at 6:01 p.m. First order of business is airport improvements.
With us this evening, Mr. Chairman, we have Kevin DeTrey and Ben Cooley. If you'd like to step up, this is where you can talk to us about what our project, either where if you're more comfortable over there, fine.
All right.
Something to lay your papers down on.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm Kevin DeTrey, the airport manager, and some of you know me, some of you probably do not. And what I thought I'd do is just go into a little bit of explanation about funding that we get for the airport. We're called a non-primary airport, as most of the smaller airports are. And the federal government has a $150,000 grant every year that goes to the non-primary airports, such as us. And the way projects are funded, it's 90% federal, 5% state, and 5% local. And the reason I'm here is to talk about our 5% local. Last year we did a relatively large project, which was a runway resurfacing. It was about $600,000 altogether. Once again, that was funded 90% federal, 5% state, 5% local. And part of our local match was actually a local farmer donated some land adjacent to the airport, and we were given credit for that land by the federal government, so we were able to recapture some of that back. So I think our actual percentage that the city, it cost us, was maybe 2 to 3% for that project. This year, in the interest of continuing preventive maintenance, we're looking at doing several projects. Number one is the rotating beacon. That's been up there many, many years. It's done a lot of revolutions. Hasn't moved a foot, but it's done a lot of revolutions. And we are having to replace brushes, motors, and so forth on that. And you know, once again, while it's going to be funded 95% federal and state, we thought it might be a good time to take a look at a new rotating beacon. And the engineering estimate, and that's Mr. Cooley here from Crawford, Murphy, and Tilley, to do that project is $15,000 to replace a beacon, so the city share would be $750 of that. The next project is our ramp areas or apron areas where the aircraft taxi over, in, out, and so forth. We're getting quite a few cracks. It's been a while since those were resurfaced. We have some cracks that are probably 2 inches in width that will need to be milled out as opposed to just crack sealed. So what we'd like to do and proposing is a crack sealing and a seal coat on 2 aprons, apron A and apron C, as in Charlie. And the engineering estimate to do that work is $70,000, of which the city share would be $3,500. And then the last of the 3 projects we'd like to do in this one grant is 2 taxiways, taxiway B as in Bravo, and taxiway C as in Charlie. A crack sealing, once again, preventive maintenance before they start to break up. Do a crack sealing project on that. Engineering estimate for that is $65,000. The city share would be $3,250, $3,250, or 5%. So what we're looking at, what we're asking council for, is to work with us to allow the service director to contract with Crawford, Murphy, and Tilly. By the way, those numbers I gave you do include the engineering fees. Okay, that is all inclusive, the numbers that I gave you. To go ahead and design and construct and bid for this project, not to exceed $150,000 total, and the city share of $7,500, which is the 5%. Once again, 90% federal, 5% state, 5% local.
And we do have that in the budget.
And that has been appropriated. That is correct. That is in our budget already.
In front of you, you have a resolution from 2017 for work that was done, so this is just a sample. The numbers and all that are not correct in here, but the format here where we authorize Crawford, Murphy, and Tilly to, on behalf of the city, to apply for the grant for us. They take care of all the grant work, and they take care of all the paperwork that goes with it, because you can imagine with a federal grant, it's not just 1 or 2 pages, it's more than that. And then for us to then proceed with getting the project done. Do you anticipate what time of year or anything that you're looking to do this, or?
We would like to go out for bids, or at least start advertising for bids in March. We found that earlier in the year you can do it with a lot of these contractors before their slate starts to get full. You can get better bids. And we'd probably be looking at sometime, I would think, late summer, early fall. I think the runway was actually, last year, the runway was actually done in September, the project was, which was a fairly large project.
Yes, we saw the lights out there at night
Oh,
while they were paving.
yeah, they were out there at night working.
Yeah.
Yeah, they sure were, so. And this project is, this year is by no means to that scope. This is primarily preventive of what we're doing. But the paperwork is, Joyce can testify, you know, the Federal Aviation Administration, when it comes to paperwork, thank goodness we have qualified people like this to handle it, because it's overwhelming. So that's the reason I'm here, to introduce myself to some of the new members and to let you know what we would like to see accomplished this year, and then to answer any questions you may have.
Kevin, looking down the road like 10, 20 years, have you met with like economic development or anything, and what things we should be looking at as far as upgrades for that airport for attracting new business and development, things like that with the new technology that's coming?
Something that's been on the schedule for many, many years, and the can is kicked down the road frequently, is to the south, across Mount Zion Road, there's a piece of property there with some woods on it, is to acquire that piece of property, which would then allow us for further expansion of the runway. Right now we're at 3,900 feet. It's in our airport master plan to go to 5,000 feet, which would require rerouting Mount Zion Road, acquiring that woods and extend the runway, you know, actually past Mount Zion Road. As far as shorter term, that's a big project. Shorter, and the reason I say 5,000 feet is a lot of corporate jets, that's kind of their insurance requirements, even though they're capable of landing in shorter distances than that. 5,000 feet is kind of the sweet spot that the insurance companies like to see. Looking a little shorter term than that, the airport has a city-owned hangar. All the buildings out there are privately owned. The Baja hangar, Hordes built a hangar. There's 4 rows of hangars that house 8 airplanes each, 32 total aircraft in those. We have a total of 35 airplanes on the airport. The little terminal building is owned by the city. There's a city, it was built in the 30s. There's a city-owned hangar that was built in the 30s too. It's in need of paint, short term. I've been able to acquire private donations to paint it this coming summer, so it won't cost the city anything to do that. We have local people that'll kick in to take care of that. But I think also maybe some public outreach, awareness, maybe even go to schools, Kiwanis, Rotary, and so forth, just to make people aware of the fact that we do have an airport. It is a business tool. I would say in the past year and a half, I've seen more jet traffic in and out than I saw in the previous 5 or 6 years to that. So I think that's an indication of business, and things are picking up some, would be my. We have a partial parallel taxiway. We have the runway, then we have a taxiway that runs parallel to that only goes partway down. We would eventually like to extend that the entire length of the runway for safety purposes. And, upgrading the weather station, upgrading lighting systems, all that type of thing are all things we'd like to, looking down the road. To make it more attractive in particular, not only for the private user, but for the corporate traffic to come in.
Thanks, Ed.
So what are some of the bigger users commercial-wise here in Cyrus?
Horde, obviously, is the most frequent user. As a matter of fact, we have a 6:30 departure tomorrow morning. We have people come in for GE. We have people come in for, it used to be the rail car company.
Cyrus Rail.
Bucyrus Rail. We have people come in for Timken. Of course, all these companies, they're headquartered somewhere else, so they don't keep their aircraft here locally except for Ford, but they have people that fly in for them. We have people flying in a jet from Muskegon, Michigan, to go to a wedding last summer, and there was 6 people, so there was 3 motel rooms, rental cars, meals that they all bought locally, that type of thing. People come in for the hospital, just basically, if you can name it, there's been a lot of activity. More so for others, but there's been activity for all these, a lot of these companies.
How much land are you talking about on that?
I think it's about 55 acres altogether for that parcel of land.
At the going rate of 10,000 an acre?
A lot of it is wooded.
Well, this would be a little less.
Yeah, it depends on who the owner is and how much they like to negotiate. You bring one checkbook or 2 when you come to the table. We wouldn't necessarily need that entire field. The biggest obstacle are the woods. We do have approach lighting systems, but somebody coming in at night, on a dark night, and it's really blind below you, and if they drag it in a little low, they could possibly hit those woods. That's the reason we have these lighting systems, to kind of show if you're too high or too low, but they can fail. So we would eventually, if nothing else, get the woods, or at least get an easement to cut the trees down. But thus far, the owner of the land hasn't wanted to talk too much about that.
Have you seen what the cost would be to reroute Mount Zion Road? Have you had that kind of figured in?
No. Your 2 options are to close it or to reroute it. Either way, it's gonna, the public is gonna be concerned about, about either way. But it would have to angle to the south to tie into 98.
And then back to,
Yeah, and then back up. And probably somewhere there are numbers for that, but I don't have those handy.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
you need a motion then to approve the project, and
Yes.
then Finance Committee will approve the finances for it.
All right. Committee, I need a motion to go ahead and proceed.
So moved.
Second. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
And we'll probably be seeking emergency legislation for this, so that you can get out to bid.
Okay, thank you, Madam President. Did anybody have any questions of our engineering firm?
He did the other one, so. Are you pleased with what he did on the other?
I am. I am.
I don't have another session.
We haven't said
I
you're
would like to
fired.
say thank you for the update on, the monthly update on what we're doing, where we're at with, the financing, the reporting.
Grants, et cetera, yes.
Because that helps me tremendously to know where things are at, so, thank
Hopefully
you.
it'll be similarly boring for a while, we'll be
Yeah.
not spending any money.
Okay. Anything else from me?
I'd like to see if you'd like to speak at Kiwanis here soon.
I would be very interested in doing that. Yes, absolutely. I'll get with you and so forth. So if everything goes according to plan, you won't see me for a year, which is fine because I hate talking in public.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
Ben.
Okay, next order of business is Mr. Wagner.
Yes, we have our material bid list ready for this year. I guess it'd be on your first page under water filtration. We have some items crossed out, but we need to add a couple of those back in. The activated carbon we want to leave in, the copper sulfate, and the linear phosphate. They weren't too sure how much they were going to use this year, and we have some left, but we want to leave it in just in case we need those and we need to get a bid price. So you know they're on your list crossed off, we need to leave those 3 items under the water filtration.
And all these items that are listed for everybody's, so they know, all these items are usually the highly used items that we use when it comes to water distribution for water lines and fittings and hydrants and such that we might need throughout the year.
We're not committed to the tons or the quantity, it's either more or less. So we try to keep it minimal of how much we keep on hand. The other reason we like to get it out early is we like to see the pricing for this next year, for this bid, because if they're gonna go up, we'll try to buy a little bit at this year's price. So I think on the water distribution, we left the items the same. Under street materials, we changed the one item to number 67 under the limestone. And we pulled the catch basins out, the 2x2s, and the 6-inch riser we can take off the list. But other than that, everything else stays the same.
Does any of this overlap with state bid at all?
No, the only thing we're doing on state bid is the salt as of now. We still belong to state purchasing, and we also are in another program called National Joint Alliance. So we have 2 programs we use for state purchases for that. So.
Anyone have any questions? No? Okay, at this present time, I guess I would like to have a motion to go ahead and proceed with approving the material bid application and move it along to finance. I need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, motion by Doug,
Second?
second by Dan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. And I would like to go ahead and recess service committee at 6:19, I believe. I think that's what it looks like.
That's good. That's good.
Okay.
I'll start planning committee at 6:19. Number 1 item is sewer groups 1 and 2. Mr. Brown.
Come on.
Yeah, it's not,
It won't be good for.
case we needed.
You just bring the one?
Yeah, I got small for it. Thank you for reminding me.
Well, I'm not gonna do that for you.
Laura, you want to introduce yourself?
The microphone, not very loud. My name's Laura McGinnis, and I come from Arcadis. I'm a civil engineer that has been working with the city for many, many years, and we're here to talk about, obviously, construction projects in support of the CSO program, and just give the new members an update of what's been happening.
I'm Richard Brandstetter. I think I've met most of the new members. I think all the old ones you might be tired of seeing me.
Never.
You've got a handout in front of you. We're gonna kind of just walk through it. I know time's tight, but we'll go quickly. We're gonna tag team this a little bit. We're depending on it. We each have our own technical expertise areas, and that's why you've got two firms. Go for it.
So some of you know, the city has an administrative order with US EPA to eliminate or reduce combined sewer overflows within the city. And this stems from, this has been going on for years, back and forth, before they even called it a long-term control plan. It stems from the Clean Water Act. That's what this is. I've been involved since 2008 on and off with the city on getting to this point, so I'll fill you in as much as I can. If you have questions about the intermediate, Bruce and Jeff can help out too. I'll look at the notes. But this, what the city is in the midst of now is a 7-year plan, and that stemmed from work that was done starting about 2008 when I got involved to evaluate combined sewer overflows and how to mitigate them, reduce them, improve the water quality. So you have about 22 combined sewer overflows or CSOs in your city. On a typical average year, which no year is average, but that's what US EPA likes to see, is what is average. You spill about 395 million gallons. And to them, that's 395 million gallons too many. But by the Clean Water Act, the goal is to get it to about 10 activations per year, down from about 60 right now on an average year. And to, I won't go into all the details, but 85% capture. That means most of the flow gets to Terry's wastewater treatment plant. So that's the goal. Right now, you guys are above that, and that's why you've been entered into this administrative order with US EPA. So in between, let's see, we evaluated alternatives, and I know Tina Wolf, who was with Arcadis, did a great job negotiating, working with the city and different administrations here to negotiate a phased plan. So right now, we're 2.5 years into the phase 1, which is 7 years. And that's what Bruce is gonna talk about more, is what has been happening in those 7 years. But some of the first things that had to be done were signage. I don't know if you've seen these. I know the city already had a lot of the signs prior to this order, but every CSO is labeled. If you're out in the Sandusky River paddling around, you can look up and you'll see them. That was an easy fix. That was done right away. 2 years ago, the city did pre-construction flow monitoring, where we monitored the flows in the pipes before the projects happen. Probably next year, we're going to have to monitor after to see the benefit. And we're hoping to see a huge benefit for some of the work that has been done. Buffalo Run sewer and a large segment of the Sandusky interceptor, the main interceptor that follows the river, have been inspected, and that identifies deficiencies and areas of concern. That was part of this plan. We've also started developing an asset management plan, which is a buzzword now, but it's going to help Terry and the city better understand their system and the treatment plant and prepare and become more proactive instead of reactive. That's evolving. That's still part of the 7-year plan. Every 6 months, the city and Bruce and I submit a report to US EPA to keep them updated, and that basically keeps them happy. And that's what we want to continue to do, show progress, keep them updated, and hopefully they won't come visit. That's the goal. And like I said, we'll do some post-construction monitoring. Jeff and I are just talking that we're going to try to angle to do that next year. Because the following year, we have to reevaluate where the improvements have been, what's next, because then we go to phase 2. And that will be renegotiated with US EPA again. I'm going to give you an update, and Bruce is going to talk more about the actual projects that have been worked on today.
and I think that Laura didn't say this, but I think most of you know this project, her involvement's been back to '08. We have not, branch control's not been involved that long, but it's been an issue and since my entry with the city for 10 years prior to that, I suspect. It's kind of like one of these things, we know we had this problem, tried to see if EPA would ignore them, that didn't happen. It went from OEPA to federal EPA, and federal EPA grabs onto you. That's a little bit different story, but fortunately we're through that. We did our planning, get together with Arcadis, Branch Deborah Carroll, and importantly the city staff. That's what that upper board is. I was like, all right, we brainstormed, instead of doing a big master plan at that point, what are the problems? How can we do it, we're halfway sort of bite this thing off in chunks. Kind of like eating an elephant. It's awful big, but you do it one bite at a time. That's, we're worried about the third bite, I think, right now. So that's what occurred. What came out of that recommendation was to do the first project that we did last year, down at the interceptor down Southern Avenue. And that started down at Keller. And it extended to where you see on the sketch and printer. So we're doing this green line. I know I'm far away, you can't see it, but we're doing that. And I'll tip this over, we're doing great. The black dashed lines is where Southern ends, just short of Whetstone. That sewer is all underground. We do have paving to do yet, but that's where that project is. Then we agreed order, which came in that planning session back in 13. That's on his back board. We would do what's called Group 1. And that's Colin Avenue, Sherwood, Robin Hood. That project, with your blessing, will wrap it in February, March timeframe. I'll be back in about a month to give you some ideas on cost. The interesting thing there, you see the little black dash line? That's where your utilities are now in people's backyards. On Southern, we put in new sanitary and let the storage stay in the combined pipe, because that's what made sense. On some of these streets, the existing combined sewer is going to become the sanitary, and we're going to put in new storm. It's just the most economical way to do it. Everyone's different. So what we're going to do is put the storm out in the street, a sanitary won't stay in the backyards. Your folks, your staff are great. They televised it, we videoed it. For the most part, it's in good shape. Few repairs, but a lot less than we anticipated. That's Group 1. Group 2 is the yellow in your left corner. Everybody following me, all right? Group 2 is what comes next. That is, we have not really started the design at all, and that's going to move forward initially with the agreed order. Group 2 is going to be constructed next year, but we able to obtain 0% financing over the past year. They'd like to see that under construction this year. So we're kind of juggling schedule between what the agreed order requires you to do and what OWDA, OWDA would like to see the financing. And I know the Fed aren't going to get upset if we go too fast, right, Lauren? So we're kind of juggling that schedule. That is next. Then in future years, Group 3A is here, picking a pop lane and a small alley. Group 3B is in orange. We're going to have to reevaluate that as we started to look at it. We thought in the planning session in 2013 that those sewers were not fully separated. All indications are that they are. Both your city staff, our staff, we haven't talked to Linda Cube about it today when he was city engineer. We're going to confirm that. And if that's fully separated, we just go somewhere else. The game plan, long term, the green line is Southern. So we installed it, we're doing the sewers here. You just will work your way down. by groups of blocks on the north and south side. Anything that's not, anything that's combined will get separated, sanitary will dump in that new sewer. That kind of leads us to, you want to step into the next planning phase.
Well, yeah. This is just a small piece, as we were saying, and as Bruce is saying.
So we're having the whole
down
city
some.
really dealing with this right now.
Right. So the next planning phase will evaluate the benefit of what's been done to date, and then we'll revisit have another planning session of where can the city best spend the money next to get the most bang for the buck and keep US EPA happy, and then we have to go negotiate with US EPA again. We're very hopeful that this work on top of what else Bruce is gonna talk about, some additional work the city's done, that we're gonna exceed expectations and hopefully, well, we'll see what the numbers show, but we'd like to see a benefit such that maybe there's things we can eliminate from the original big picture plan. Maybe something has changed where we need to focus in a different area, and that's what's really good about the way US EPA allowed us to set up this administrative order, is we look at it in phases. It's not one 20-year project for 20 million. It's, let's do this phase and see the benefit, and then figure out where to go next. So that's definitely a plus that you guys have with them. I failed to mention before, the first phase, 7 years, 8.4 million, so. It's still a lot of money.
If you look at that, go ahead, Jeff.
We do get credit too for the fairgrounds project we did.
Right.
And when we do 98, when we do some separation there. It's not a lot, but we do get credit for that too with the US EPA. And I think Laura touched on the asset management plan that we have to implement with this program. As our sewer plant is pretty old, we have to have inventory of every piece of equipment we got. How old, what's the life? I mean, we're going out and we're filling out reports that are pretty extensive, and a lot of communities haven't even started any of this program yet. On top of that, in October, the water side starts. So there's a mandate for that starting in October that we have to start putting a plan together for asset management, which will have a list of all of our equipment, but about where the valve boxes are and GIS mapping for everything, and and that's one thing we put in our budget for this year with Lynn. So so there's a lot of things coming. I think we're on top of it with Arcadius and Bruce and Lynn doing some stuff local, but as we fill out these reports that are due every 6 months, so far, keep your fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Yes,
when you were saying that you were following a plan, where did the Woodlawn sewer lines fit into this plan? Is that the second phase of the 7.5-year plan, or is that part of the first 7.5-year plan?
I speak to that. It's not part of the first 7.5-year plan.
Okay.
The idea, when we had that planning session with everybody back in 2013, after we did all this, we decided this is where to concentrate. We anticipate Woodlawn to be the next one. We show something like Oakwood, but Oakwood, it serves a small amount. How much we do on Woodland depends on what we see in that next study.
So that would be part
That answer your question.
Should
It's
be
not
part of
now.
phase 2, which would be
Okay.
5+ years from now.
Okay.
Two things I didn't say because I didn't have my notes with me as I walked through it. Jeff mentioned the fairgrounds retention basin and storm, and that was part of the agreed order. That's this project here. I think if you drive out the way we go to the Y, you know where it is, Trillium Center. The other thing that we're adding in that we didn't pick up on during the planning session, but we realized we can help this situation in drainage and people north of the railroad tracks, is to put a storm sewer under Mansfield that drains that southeast corner. So we can put a separate storm sewer under Mansfield, pick up that water and save capacity in the existing for water coming down the side. That should be under construction at 18. that is part of what we submitted to, that would be funded with the like the 0% on money as well.
Bruce, and I think that was in that area that you were talking about down there at the golf course. So
Right.
what we did is we looked at that subdivision and said, you know, this is draining into that 4-foot tile that can't handle it now. And I'm not too sure where Woodlawn all drains, but we're trying to alleviate that flow being so bad out of that tile coming down Whetstone Street. We want to add another probably 3 to 4 foot tile next to Whetstone Street and cut that subdivision off and run it down its own pipe. So that way it alleviates that flow trying to get in that pipe, and it can't.
Right, and what he's talking about is the Nolman Street area, if you know where Nolman is, and O'Reilly's, and the VFW there.
Yeah.
They have a lot of water problems right now. All that water can't get away, and it's flooding those businesses right here on the corner. And I've had a lot of complaints about that, and so, and then when the water does dump down to the north of East Mansfield Street, it comes out and it almost like creates like a tumbling action, and it's undermined that whole entire tile that goes down through the river bottom, and it's completely ripped out. They had a drainage tile underneath the ditch, and that entire tile is completely gone because I watched it go down the river. I mean, it must have been 300 feet long, and it all went down Sandusky River.
I think the plan is to put like a concrete swale, you know, all the way to the river for it to run down, instead of a tile like barrier. So it's kind of what the tentative plan is, I think, with Bruce, so.
Man,
Yeah.
as well as down there on the corner of East Mansfield Street and Whetstone. For whatever reason, I don't understand that they don't have, they build up the west side of the street really high, about 3 feet higher than what the property is. And then what they've done is they have no drainage of any sort on the west side of the street, so when it does rain, all the water that does collect rolls back into the yards on the corner there.
At Whetstone and
East Mansfield Street, yeah. The sidewalk's approximately 3 feet lower than what the street is, and it was never that way until a few years ago when they changed and repaved and they built up the street and slanted it to the east. They didn't put any type of drainage, so all the water rolls into the sidewalk area, and it gets at least, 6, 8, 10 inches deep, and there's nowhere for the water to go.
we should be able, we can incorporate that into the drainage that we do there, Bruce. Thank you. Any other questions at this point? I'm gonna circle back. If you look at the sheet, I'll do this very quickly for the benefit of new members. Item number 3, prior to this, we did a sewer separation on Charles and then on Spring, and that was about 5 years ago, in anticipation of knowing that EPA was gonna, come after it. And we were gonna do street work there anyway, so then we did separation. I won't say while we're at it, because that was half the cost. My gut is that helped a little bit with EPA negotiations, because they saw you were moving forward. We then did, we were able to catch a combined sewer up at the Crawford, Mary Perry, the storm drainage issue. We realized a couple of catch basins were tied in the sanitary. We pulled those out. We've since notified to send the annual reports, so the feds know we're doing that. Item number 4, your city crews, Jeff Dunn and the crowd have been great. They have a camera, they have a back truck, they televise everything out in front of what we're doing. That saves a lot of money. It's been very helpful. And then what we've done with them, I think it's Jeff's idea, we are videotaping behind them. So they videotape all the southern that was installed by the contractor. We do have 1 or 2 issues he's gonna have to address. And they've been good about working with us on, swimming, dye testing when we need it, those kind of things. So it's been a good 3-way effort. We're gonna be talking about item number 5, I tossed that to Laura prematurely. Challenges, financing's been been with, obviously, if it's a rate increases. You know, we got a 0% loan, yes, it still needs to be paid back, but that still saves a lot of money. Get that loan in, looks like it's 30-year payback. We'll probably have to be back here for legislation on some of that as we go through the process. Coordination with other projects, you know, city must do their annual paving, ODOT's doing paving, and you're doing water improvements like you do just about every year, and just trying to make all that mesh. Sometimes it works better than others. State went ahead and paved State Route 19. We didn't do that, you know, Hopley down by where we're doing some storm sewers. We may have to do a street repair or two to do some work out in that, but we didn't want to stop them from paving all our 19. We'll deal with that. We do hit some underground surprises. Haven't had any major ad change orders, but they're out there. And we just deal with them. Disruption in traffic, you all probably have to deal with that. I've gotten, the safety service director has gotten on me a few times about travel on the east end of Southern, and we try to.
I'm
keep
nothing
that
but
happen.
nice to you.
And, well, I know you probably have, Arcadis has where the Western Carroll, but you have changed the administration.
Right, that's one thing we're looking at FA is multi-20-year approach with US EPA. In my time, we're on our 4th mayor, of the time I've been working with Bucyrus. And US EPA has turned over a few times. The person that we deal with directly is turned over. So that's why we come to you with new council members too, to give you an update so you know what's going on. So we have more than just me and Bruce and Jeff in the know. We have several people who know. So as folks retire or transition or who knows what happens, that's always a challenge on a long project like this. And these two have been joking all day about how they're going to retire at some point.
Before we're done. But that's 20 years out, I think a lot of you will.
Right, so that's always a challenge, but it's something we anticipate ahead of time and we'll prepare for.
Doug's gonna be here for the whole thing, aren't you, Doug?
And Monica. Yeah.
What time did we start? We told Jeff.
You're past your limit.
He said keep it at 15 minutes. We went too long.
Oh, that's not too bad.
We will come back at any time and,
You'll be back in February then to discuss money with us, dollars for this?
She doesn't care about money, she just has a plan. So we won't make her, she doesn't care about it, but, no, we'll be back to fine tune some numbers.
So at this time, we're not looking for any legislation or anything like that, we're
Just
just,
an update.
Just your patience and you give us that.
Okay,
Thank you.
Anybody else have questions for them?
I had one quick question.
Yeah.
You mentioned a statistic early on, 395 million gallons, and that the goal was 80% retention. Was that the original? Where was that figure in the timeline?
That was the number that the city gave US EPA when we did the first study.
Okay.
So that will be the number that you're held to as we proceed through this process.
And where is that number in millions of gallons?
Now?
You know?
We don't know now until we reevaluate the flow meters
All right.
and look at how much is still continuing to spill. Because what we can do is we build a hydraulic model, computer model of the system. And we run the actual rainfall that happens and look at what happens. Now, Terry can tell us how much comes to the plant, but he can't tell us in detail how much went out to CSO 17, how quickly, how long. But the model can, and that's where those numbers come from. The model predicted about 400 million gallons, so we will update the model with these improvements and any other changes in the system and reevaluate for the typical year, which is not, it's very rare in your system. But that's how the US EPA holds it constant. Everybody has a typical year. So you were telling me about what just filled up the detention basin. That would not be a storm in a typical year. So you would expect to have overflows during an event, and it should be allowed because it is not typical.
Well, we have a very unique system too, don't we? with the way the interceptor was put in and?
A lot of cities had all flow run into the river, and then they came in and intercepted it to take it to the plant. Your system is unique in the sense that interceptor can carry a lot of flow, and a lot of flow can get to it. The plant can't handle it, the plant shouldn't have to handle it. The plant is designed for an average daily flow, and then it's peaked, it takes a certain peak. Your interceptor can get a lot more flow to the plant. And that's one thing we don't want to have to do is start building a larger plant, because that'll be inefficient 95% of the time when you're running average daily flow. So that's why separation is key, because then we're just getting the flow out of the pipes. Letting the stormwater get back to the ground and running to the river.
Laura said something very critical at the beginning, is it's, we're trying to reduce it, you will not eliminate it, EPA knows that. And when people start saying CSO reduction, elimination, yes.
Now, just to refresh, some people may not remember, the new line you're putting in is becoming the new sewer, and the existing sewer is the stormwater, depending on where you're at.
Right now, Southern, the existing became the storm, we put in new sanitary. On Group 1, the existing's gonna be the sanitary, and we're putting in a new storm.
Right, that's what I'm saying, some of it's
Yeah,
different.
it goes both ways, and it depends on what's the most efficient way, and the condition of the pipe, and those kind of things.
But the Southern Avenue is now the new sewer, and the existing became the storm sewer.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Going over all of them, man. Okay, I recess at, unless there's any other questions, I recess at 6:47. Fine.
Okay, I'll call the Finance Committee to order at 6:47 p.m. The first thing is Bucyrus Public Library tax levy. This is for the 0.5 mil increase, which will generate $166,595 during the first year.
You were given sample legislation, and Mr. Ratliff, you want to explain the change that you made to that sample legislation they received?
Nothing of any real substance, but Brendan pointed out to me the wordiness of the way we had described the library district. And it was really because I kind of repeated the word township like 100 times. So what we did was we just said that we changed it more like the format that the library had used. And it basically just says these townships, it lists all the townships with the specific carve-outs in the different portions. So that's really the only significant change. I think we left open a blank spot for the resolution numbers. But other than that, I think everything is there. For this year, I'm not sure you had any additional input or anything.
Do I need to? I don't really have anything additional. I just, in case you had any more questions that you thought of after the meeting on Tuesday night, I'd be happy to answer anything if you guys have any more questions.
I have why, just curiosity, why is it needed by May primary, but not the November? I'm just curious, I had a question and somebody else asked me that.
Yeah, we just decided to go on in May rather than wait until November. I mean, there's no emergency that we need to have the monies now. The board decided that they wanted to try in May. I think also as a possibility, if it would not pass in May, then we have November that we can try again if we need to. But yeah, that was no real emergency reason behind it or anything.
Well, in section 7, it does indicate that the resolution is hereby declared to be an emergency measure.
The reason for that is that if it is not an emergency measure, when we pass it, it takes 30 days to go into effect. They have to have this paperwork to the Board of Elections by February the 7th, which is the day after our next meeting when we will vote on this. So it'll be signed that night, goes into effect immediately upon signature, so that then it can be presented to the Board of Elections the next day. And they can meet their deadline with them.
That's the only emergency, because they have to have a certain number of days prior to
Prior
the
to the primary. So, because this has to go down to the Secretary of State's office, the wording that is in here of what we say we want on the ballot, they have to approve it, and they always find some little thing they want to change about it. And so we have to, that's why you have to allow that period of time. It's the same way with when people are putting their names on the ballot, you've got to have it in like 90 days. Yeah, by 90 days ahead of time, so that if there's anything that comes up, there's the opportunity for them to do an investigation. But that's why this is, this legislation itself is an emergency, is because of their deadline that they have to meet.
I guess the other one I was going to bring up was that, we're talking about $832,000 in tax over a 5-year period of time. If, the current assessed valuation just remains the same over the 5-year term. I guess, from my perspective, I was kind of looking for a little more detail as to what the library was going to be utilizing the funds for. Would you like to speak to that a little bit?
The board has not specifically listed items that we are going to use that money for. We will be using that money for improvement and extension of services and programming, is what the basic money is for. So we want to be able to start providing services and do programming for our community members that they are missing out on. For instance, the mobile hotspots. We cannot afford to buy into the mobile hotspot plan for libraries at our current budget. These mobile hotspots we would have at the library. Library patrons can check those out for, we haven't decided a period of time, but we're talking anywhere from 2 weeks to 30 days at one time. Then that allows them to have internet in their home at no charge if they can't get in, or they can't or don't have internet in their home. So we would be providing an extended internet service through the library. And that's one of the things I feel we have a need here in our community. We have a lot of rural people who maybe cannot get internet or cannot afford internet. And they have children in school who have to do blizzard packages when there's no school. This would afford them the opportunity to be able to have that equipment in their home and get access to things like that. That's one of many other services and items that we've been thrown out on the table, but nothing specific has been decided yet. So we're going to be having a meeting soon to decide that.
Madam Chair. Are you going to then, prior to the election, you're going to be getting out to the public with
Absolutely.
what all
Well,
those services are and the
yes,
things that you're
yes.
going to be using the money for?
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. There's just no absolute definite decisions have been made yet. There's been a lot of things thrown out on the table of what we could do. The mobile hotspots, though, is one thing that we definitely plan to do should the levy pass. We will have the funding then to be able to afford to do that. What?
How much of an increase is this to your current budget? What is a portion of this $166,000?
Well, our current budget right now is roughly $522,000. It will probably put us up to back to numbers that we had, I would say probably in the early 2000s.
Okay.
Like I said, right now we're operating on our 1998 budget with the cuts that we've received over the years at the state level. Yeah. And we make up, 98% of our funding is from the state, And then the other 2% is donations, grants that we've written and received, bequests that we've received, things like that. That's how we make a little bit in fine money, but that's how we make up the difference.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Any questions, Dan?
No, I'm good.
Okay, then you're looking to legislation.
So do I have a motion for, to, move this forward to get legislation for the 0.5 mil increase for the library?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed.
We'll be voting on this on February the 6th at full council meeting, okay? Thank you very much.
Will you need me to return at that meeting?
Pardon me?
Will you need me to return at that meeting for any questions, or you'll be?
That's up to you if you'd like to come. We're always glad to have you here. And, you know, any last minute, and it also gives you an opportunity to put in a plug for it too in the public. So
Sure.
do take advantage of that.
Okay, great, thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, we have appropriations. Joyce?
As I explained in the night, I have 2 appropriations, one in the general fund, program 1, security of persons and property, in the police department, materials and supplies. This is $1,450. This is a carryover amount from last year's budget. This $1,450 was donations specifically for Operation Hope, and we didn't know how much would get spent in December, so I hadn't moved this amount to the 18 budget. So that's what that one's for. The other one, for police continuing professional training, this is a reimbursement, the $7,600 that comes from the State Attorney General's office, a reimbursement of monies that were spent in 17 for training and education for the police officers. So I need to appropriate this $7,600 into this year's budget.
Questions? So do I have a motion to approve the 2 appropriations?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. The enterprise fund reimbursements,
Yes, you'll see on the next page after the appropriation, oops, that's referral, sorry.
next page.
Next one. I wrote up a memo explaining, and for the new people, these enterprise fund reimbursements are only for departments in the general fund that do work for the utilities. Council members and council clerk do work for legislation to do the utility projects. Legal advertising, all of our legislation has to be advertised. So there's a cost involved there. The mayor, of course, is involved in a lot of the work for some of these items. My office does all the financial work for these items and paying the bills and following the grants and grant administration. This is just for me and the expenses of my office. My staff is not included in this calculation. The treasurer, who is responsible for reconciling all the books and signing the checks, and then the law director and assistant for all of their work actually doing the legislation. So I did change the 1%. We're basically at 75% for all the departments now. The law director had been at 80. I dropped that back to 75. And the mayor has historically always been at 50%. So we take the actual expenses for the year, that's in the first column, and then take 75% of that as a reimbursable expense. And then 20% of that total of reimbursable expense comes from each of the utility funds, waterworks, sewage disposal, solid waste, and stormwater. And that's $68,343.39 per fund. And this is a formula then that council needs to approve, and it is approved through the state auditor's office also.
Any questions? So do I have a motion to approve the enterprise fund reimbursements?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed. Moving on to the airport improvements.
You heard earlier from them what it is it involved with 60, is it 65?
7,500.
7,500? Okay.
The city share would be 7,500 for these improvements, which is 5%.
Is that already in the bucket? You lost, Jeff.
It was in the
was.
budget.
It's in the budget,
Yes.
okay.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed. Okay, material bids. So this already went through service. So we just need to approve the service safety director to advertise for bids. And enter into contracts for the purchase of the materials and supplies. Do I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed. Okay, sewer groups 1 and 2.
They indicated they will be back next month with dollar amounts for us. So we're not really doing anything with those. We just know that the Platting Committee approved the work to be done, so we're waiting on the cost estimates, the engineer's estimates for those.
And the same with Whetstone
Yes.
Municipal Drain Project. Yes. Anybody have anything else? So I will recess at 7:03 p.m.
Okay. Well, and that brings public lands and buildings. I'll let the order at 7:03 p.m. We are discussing the power space contracts. That Steve the law director? You handling that?
That's kind of the problem. Well, no, I mean, that's kind of the problem. Nobody's handling it, really.
Well, yeah, that's what I
It's been on the list for a long time. Kurt and I've had multiple conversations over 2 years probably, I guess. They're out there, the wavelength contract's coming to an end. We've had some proposals. I think the most recent one was the maintenance. There was like some company was proposing some sort of a maintenance contract. That was talked about for a while. The issue is his contract's coming to an end in April. And Public Lands and Buildings needs to decide if they're going to put that out for bid, if they're going to look at other options, whatever they're going to do. I think, did the Wavelength and Kurt was here, he had previously entered a kind of an outline proposal of what, you know.
Just some stuff I kind of thought of, but I'm.
Yeah, I mean, definitely not detailed. And I'd asked him to do that. I said, I don't know what the committee's gonna do, so, you know, maybe we'll outline some, what potentials are out there. It's kind of up to you guys. I mean, you know, you can just put it out to bid. You could do RFPs for proposals. You could bring in people. It's one of those things that we get kind of random solicitations for all the time. A lot of times they just get thrown in the circular filing cabinet, but, they're just sales pitches, and, they come with the KFC coupons and, lease your tower things, and I don't know much about it, I know legal stuff, but I don't know much about towers, what's good, what's bad. Kurt can give you a better indication of what our tower inventory is, and where we go from there. Kind of up to the committee.
I think we had discussed in the past that it's an opportunity maybe for additional income. If, we go out see what other people want to propose to do it, and we've never really, in the bigger cities, they do make big money off of, having allow companies to put equipment on there. We're not a big city. But there's still maybe other companies that are interested, that could offer some things that we don't even know about yet. So it may be well worth just simply doing requests for proposals to find out what is available out there.
And one thing to consider too is, and I would urge the committee to talk to, I suppose Terry is the guy to talk to at this stage, the water towers. I don't even know what can or cannot go on those. Big things, little things. Kurt's equipment's not that big, I don't think. And so what space is available on there, what is or isn't. And one of the things that had came up last year sometime was the scheduled maintenance on those towers, the painting and all that is coming up fairly soon. So I don't know what impact that has on all that. So there's a lot there. There's a lot to be discussed and a lot to talk about. And I don't have the expertise to say all those things, obviously. So whether or not you want to look at consultants that are out there, I don't know. But all those things are on the table, and I know Kurt's here, and he can probably give you some insight as to, what's out there right now as far as what the city has. And we've got to decide where we're going to go, because it's extremely important to Wavelength's business, and I assume to their customers as well, so that's where we're at.
Well, I was looking at the open projects that proposals, this is 2016, proposal solicitations for future of all city-owned tower space will be requested in 2017. So I guess we should have done that last year, huh? So I don't know, I guess, is that what we want to do now? I guess.
Yeah, you better get it done.
And I guess I don't know, I was thinking that was was in the process, but apparently not. So.
Well, and I know the mayor continues to get solicitations, but, I don't know that I know I don't, so I don't know that we know even what we're selling. People send solicitations to buy tower space from us, but I don't know what we're selling, and I don't know if we know, and whether it's something that would work with what Wavelength is already doing, or what the options are. I don't even know how to define what the potential options are.
Well, I was gonna ask you, can you elaborate on that maybe, Terry?
Okay, I know quite a bit about towers, because I'm on them a lot, and the thing with the water towers, as far as lacing them and other people being interested in them, the big money's with the cell phone companies, okay? With cell phone companies, it's not in their interest to get on one of your water towers, because there's already other towers that are not like a water tower. There's like cell phone towers around town that have space on them that they could get on. It's much quicker. The water towers, it's kind of like, they only get on them when it's like their last resort. Like, you know, there's zoning, that there's no towers available. The cell stuff on a water tower tends to be very intrusive, and it starts to be a problem when you gotta do the painting and stuff. So I don't see any huge revenue potentials there. The only stuff that would be interested in being on them water towers is people that are doing what I'm doing. Because it's a lot less intrusive stuff. It can be taken up, put down, it can be put up and taken down much quicker. That maintenance company that Rob was talking about, that Terry had been getting involved with, I looked into them. What they want to do is they want to put like a maintenance schedule, like on a 10-year contract as far as painting the towers and all this stuff, and it ends up being like 3 times more expensive than if you just did the maintenance that needed to be done and didn't lock yourself in a contract with them. And then a little side benefit to them is they got a clause in there that they can lease your tower out and you have no control over it anymore. They give you a little cut of the money, but it's just like more icing on the cake for them. So you're basically relinquishing your control of who you get to say is on these towers. And I'm really against it because just as a local citizen of Bucyrus, I think that Bucyrus property owned by the city should be controlled exclusively by the city. And as far as putting it out for bid and stuff, the people that are receiving services from these towers currently, you know, if a provider that's on there, if it switches to another provider without much advance notice, you're gonna be, you know, obviously I'd have to notify all these people, hey, as of this date, you're no longer gonna be able to get service from me. Hopefully, somebody else is coming along and, you know, it could get kind of challenging for those people as far as where they're going to be able to, how quickly can they find a replacement and things like that. So I would see that as a reason why I would be more wanting to go through a non-request for proposal negotiation as far as what the city's getting from me. And I am negotiable, like that was just some stuff, that paper you got there is something that Rob and me sat down and kind of went over one meeting in his office, and so, there's one other thing, I just lost my thought.
There's also currently, one of the changes in the agreement we had historically was that Kurt's company provided Wi-Fi or internet here. We've kind of went in a different direction because it's all tied into our phone system now. But Kurt's providing, we have Wi-Fi in some of the parks and some things like that.
Yeah, my goal was to put Wi-Fi in all of the parks. Takes a while to get all that stuff installed, but I see that as a huge benefit there to the people that use the parks. And I mean, just as somebody who lives in town here, I'd really like to see our town have free Wi-Fi in the parks.
And?
Yes.
Well, I guess as far as, like he's saying about the Wi-Fi, I mean, we just had Brenda in here talking about needing mobile hotspots for the public library. I mean, if you can provide free Wi-Fi to people, maybe that's another avenue for some of these people that are less off to be able to still have internet access. I mean, so that would be, I guess, an added benefit there.
Yeah, and one of the things that we've, like I said, the inventory is one of the first things. I mean, I don't even know what all towers we have. I know there's one back here, and then there's one down Fire, and then there's a lot of towers. I kind of see those every day, but I don't know what else is out there. Kurt probably knows more than I do. I'm sure he does.
There's a police department tower, the fire department tower, there's one at the city garage on Isaac Beale, and the 2 water towers. And then if you acquire the ODOT facility on Irving, there's a tower there too, so that could be another one that could get added in.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'd like to suggest an ad hoc committee that way we can keep the administration moving along with this to do some investigation, because we do need some investigation done with, there are so many unanswered questions. So if maybe we got 2 members of council and we get the service director and the law director on this, and then get some hard meetings scheduled up that are going to be pushed to get the information together, because we've got a tight time frame here.
Right.
That might be the best way to go at it, rather than waiting 2 weeks to discuss it again. So you could get that set up if you wanted to.
And just as a suggestion, as opposed to the law director, I think you'd be better served with maybe somebody from police or fire that, the EMA considerations, because 2 of their towers are involved.
We could include the law director and somebody from the police.
He's really trying to get
I'm
out.
trying to out my schedule a little bit, but I think those departments would be important, because they have, with EMA and connection there, and I know we're looking at, it's not on the agenda tonight, but I know we're looking at warning sirens and some other
Yes.
EMA kinds of things.
Yes, that are, been brought to our attention, so.
Well, I mean, yeah, we could do that. I had the thought of just getting some proposals and then looking at them, so, I mean.
Well, I mean, this committee can do that. They can, you've got a few things that you need to investigate, and then do requests for proposals, and have the service director has places that he can put these out that other people can see too. And that could be part of what you're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with that.
I'm just looking at a way to speed this up.
Right.
We need to
Right, I
speed
know
it up.
we're running out of time here, this should be.
I guess Kurt needs an answer too to that question.
Yeah, I mean, he's the one who needs the answer more than anyone. And in Kurt's defense, I guess, there's no reason why we couldn't extend this, at some point for a period of time while we've got this figured out, so I don't want to leave him high and dry.
Or his customers for.
You're right,
Yeah.
so I guess, do we need a motion for that, or?
If you'd like to put together an ad hoc committee, if your committee would like to do that, yes, then you can decide who you want to be on it.
So you're saying that maybe we would just run an extension for the time being, so we're not so much under the gun?
Well, I mean, that's a
That would be a viable
possibility.
option. I mean,
It doesn't have to be done immediately. We got until what, May?
April, I think,
April,
wasn't
May?
it April?
April 18th.
I mean, you give the committee a chance to get 1 or 2 meetings under their belt, see where you are, say, hey, we can't make it by then we can do the extension.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
we're running out of time, and I'm just saying, instead of being forced to make unwise decisions, I would think we'd be better off to go ahead and give an extension, so we're able to make a better educated decision, what I'm getting at.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we could, no problem with that either. Do both, is what you're saying?
Correct.
Give an extension, and, because even if we meet and the 1st of March we decide, we want to go with someone else, that's really not fair, that him and his customers only have a month to figure out what they're gonna do, so. I mean, I think for everybody involved, 6-month extension and form this committee, is that something we can, I mean, I don't know if we can just extend that on our own, but.
If we were to give Kurt the extension, would we still, I guess if we, we did decide to end up going with somebody else, would he still be able to keep his extension to be able to, I guess, help his people to move on to another career?
Well, that's the idea, is to at least, like I say, if we don't come up with a decision.
What is that a legal contract? If we extend it, say, 6 months, we can't bid the contract till the end of the 6 months?
The current contract says at the end of the 10-year term, a term of 5 years, extension may be granted. So, with it not being until April 18th, doing a 6-month extension now, to me, doesn't make a whole lot of sense when there's kind of a 5-year extension potentially hanging out there. We'll have a few meetings between now and April 18th. I realize that's pushing it closer to the deadline, but, the original contract calls for potentially a 5-year extension after the 10-year term ends. So to me, I think you'd want to stick with what's in the terminology of the original contract.
That's to you.
You can. The issue we have is that the original contract,
And this is dated 2008, so I don't know. And
Yeah, no,
any
it-
changes have been made to this
well,
version.
there's been some agreed changes. The issue we have is the original contract was done as an exchange for services. It wasn't a bid process, which technically is not the way you're supposed to do things. And, I agree that I doubt between now and April 8th, even if we just went straight out to bid today, if you voted to go to bid today, you'd be hard pressed to get that done before April 18th, with all the advertising requirements and all those sorts of things. So, I think we'd be best served to maybe try, if you're gonna go the ad hoc committee route, get that ad hoc committee together, and then maybe as part of that ad hoc committee, we can make the recommendation that, there's no time, there's contracts in play, and all those sorts of things that maybe justify either the extension or the continuation clause with under current contract. But yeah, kind of what you're saying is, we got a little time to get a meeting or two together and get some organization.
Or do you see April?
No, that was on the first.
No, it says
That's where
here the
it says-
19th of February,
Yeah. It was signed on the 18th of April.
but the contract states 19th of February. I'm just saying,
It just
that's
took them that
on,
long to get around to signing it.
Yeah.
that's on line 10, that says 19th of February, so
Yeah,
we don't.
no, it wouldn't be the first one I've seen. It was set as a 10-year contract, and it wasn't entered into until April 18th. The signature dates are dated April 18th. February 18, April 18.
I'm just curious, I
Yeah.
didn't know which one you're the legal expert on.
Well, no, I mean, the contracts are supposed to be plain on their
Bruce.
face. Sometimes they're not.
As far as an ad hoc committee, I don't understand why the ad hoc committee would be the one that would be making the recommendation at this point in time, when we already know that we don't have enough time now to do what we want to get done. I mean, that's just another layer of bureaucracy as far as I'm concerned.
Right, I guess I was just hoping the administration could give us some details and then the committee itself could,
I mean, that's what public lands and buildings is about. I think we can make our own decisions.
But then you can call special meetings anytime you want to.
right. Yeah, I'm, yeah. Public lands and buildings can the entire committee should be able to handle this, but, I guess if we could, I don't know how we persuade the administration to get on the ball on this, but, I guess my thinking was, okay, if you wanna do something, let's do it. If not, we're just gonna go along with the 5-year contract. I guess we can tell them that, the administration. Now's your chance to do something if you want to do something, you know. And I guess that's kind of the way I thought it was left. I thought we were going to hear something, and apparently, you know, shame on me for thinking that. Well, no, I don't mean it derogatory. I just mean, you know.
We can schedule a meeting next week if you want to get started on it.
Yeah, I mean, if the administration can come up with something, I guess I can contact them and see what they can do. But yes, we do need to get moving on this.
Of course, any meetings would be public meetings, they would be publicized, public would be
Right.
invited to attend.
I'm available Monday, Tuesday, and Friday. In the evening.
Okay. Well, I mean, I guess we can't really, there's no decision to be made here, I'll try to arrange some type of meeting and see what the administration is wanting to do, so. I guess anything else?
No, yes,
And, we'll, 7:27. Still 7? Yeah, 7:27. We'll adjourn.
All right, I will call the Economic Development Committee meeting to order at 7:27 PM. On the topic, we have the Board of Zoning Appeals appointment. We have a list of current people that are already on the Board of Zoning Appeals. I believe Mr. Emerson is no longer going to go forward on the Board of Zoning Appeals,
No.
correct?
Correct.
So.
We sent, everyone did get the letter today to sign. We sent a letter around for everyone to sign. Thank you for his many, many years of service, not only on city council, but also on the Board of Zoning Appeals. He brought a good bit of expertise to that position, and we understand he's devoting himself to golf.
Say I blame him.
I can't blame it all.
At this time, we're just making it aware to everybody that we are ready to appoint a new member to the Board of Zoning Appeals, so if that would interest anybody in the community. Yes, sir.
I like to nominate Mr. Stoker. I already asked him, and
We have a couple others that have shown interest too, so we
I'm
were.
just saying,
Yeah.
I put his name on the list. He
Okay.
is interested. He is on
International Property Maintenance
Appeals Board. Yes, he is on that one.
Okay. So, and then again, like I said, you know, anybody else that may be interested in this position, please get your information into the city here, and we will also consider you. I believe that is all that we have tonight for economic development. So I will call economic development to order at 7:29 p.m.
We're gonna recess it.
Recess, I'm sorry. Oh, did I get this mentioned? Yeah.
Turn the paper over now.
Yep. Any public participation? There is none. I will ask for a motion to adjourn the joint regular committee meetings.
So moved.
Second.
And we are adjourned at 7. All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned at 7:29 p.m.
I remember that.
We have a few things that need signed so that we can proceed with legislation, and some of them require double signatures, so make sure if you need to sign it, you get it signed before you leave.
concludes my broadcast day.
Huh?
That concludes my broadcast day.
I'm just saying, I'm available Monday, Tuesday.
Oh.
I'll see what